This episode of the Focus Action Results podcast is brought to you by Accelerate Performance, creators of the Focus Action Results course and the FAR Planner. Welcome to the podcast that promises you'll be much more productive with me, your host, Ralph Varcoe. Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Focus Action Results podcast, where today I'm delighted that I'm joined by Ewan Mochrie. Now, Ewan is a master trainer of NLP, master trainer of hypnosis, a trainer of timeline therapy, master coach trainer. He's an author. He is the chief executive and founder of a company called Inspire 360, where he is the course director. So he is an incredibly busy man, and I'm very glad that he's been able to join me on the podcast today. So, and I also had the pleasure of meeting Ewan last year when, in fact, I did some training that he was leading, which I have to say is probably the best training course that I've been on, a whole 7 or 8 days immersed in the subject of NLP. So welcome, Ewan, and thank you for joining.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here, Ralph.
Brilliant. Well, look, there may be people listening to this who don't know what NLP is. I mean, it's a term which some people think of in terms of artificial intelligence with natural language programming. That isn't what we're talking about today. So would you be able to just kind of give a really brief overview for the uninitiated as to, what is NLP, what is hypnosis, what is timeline therapy, what do you do, what do you train?
Okay, yeah. So NLP in this context stands for neuro-linguistic programming. It's a collection of techniques which started back in the 1970s, but basically it's a codification of how people think and produce their behavior. So it's kind of something which grew out of psychology about the study of excellence. So people were curious about, these people seem to be getting good results, these people maybe not getting quite such good results. So what's the difference? And basically the NLP content analyzes how the mind works. So it's about your conscious and your unconscious mind. It's about your beliefs and your values and your memories and your preferences. So that's what the basis of the NLP content is. The timeline therapy technique is, again, a suite of techniques which arose out of NLP, and it's a collection of techniques which are really useful for letting go of negative emotions from the past. So if there's things which happened to you in the past which make you feel angry now, or make you feel sad, or make you feel fearful or guilty or hurt or something like that, this is the timeline therapy. Some techniques where you can access where that seemed to come from and let that go now, so that you're not affecting how you live your life now with things which happened to you in the past. And you can also change beliefs you have about yourself too. So some people have limiting beliefs about themselves, like they may think that they're not good enough or something like that, or they can't be successful. And again, you can trace where you picked up that belief from, and you can change that belief using timeline therapy. Now, hypnosis is, people have got strange ideas about what hypnosis is and what it isn't. That's really come from the history of it, and the fact that today a lot of people come across it just through stage hypnosis and that sort of thing. But fundamentally, hypnosis is just trance, and it's very much like meditation. So many of your listeners, I'm sure, will meditate already. Meditation has been scientifically proven to help people to focus in the now, to be more emotionally resilient. And hypnosis is like doing a meditation, but there's somebody else there with you giving you positive suggestions. Now, you can bring all of that together and use all of those techniques in lots of different ways. One of the ways which I use it is coaching other people. So you can find out how somebody got to where they are today. You can find out what they want to achieve. You can find out what's working for them, what's not working for them, and you can help to guide them to make changes and to do what they want to do. But you can also use it in other areas. NLP is used quite a lot in business and in sales and in performance, in sports performance. It also any performance really, but sports performance it gets used in.
So it would be fair to say that NLP is being used by many people all the time without them perhaps even knowing that it's a thing or that it's happening, because it is that study of performance and how the mind works and how to be able to achieve whatever the goals are, or different beliefs, or improvements through the use of deliberately choosing how to change your mind, use your brain.
Some people describe it as an instruction manual for the mind. That's one way of thinking about it. And what NLP is doing is not invented a lot of these things which we teach people on the training. What it's doing is it's showing people this is what you do already.
Yeah.
Of that, this is the bit that works, and this is the bit that's causing you some problems. So it's really a code. That's why I'll describe it as a codification of how people think and produce the behavior, because it's not some invented stuff that, if you do this, if you turn around 3 times and touch your nose or something, that's not what it's about. It's about, well, here's how you actually build relationships with other people. Let's break down what language means and how language works. So when somebody else says this, what can you do with what they've then said? And what does it tell you about what's going on with them? So it's that. So yes, effectively people are using it without knowing that they're using it. But if you bring that knowing into your daily life, then what you suddenly are able to do is have more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't want, because you know what works and what doesn't work.
Excellent. So that's a good segue into the daily life, right? So you run a training company which trains in NLP and hypnosis, timeline therapy, and coaching. So how did you get into that? When did you first discover NLP? What were you doing before you set up Inspire 360? And kind of what's your journey? How did you get to where you are now?
So I've been running this business now for 16 years. Prior to that, I worked as a chartered accountant. So I had worked for one of the large accountancy firms, and then I'd worked in business. And I'd always read books about, I'd always been interested in self-improvement and personal development. I'd read books like What They Don't Teach You at the Harvard Business School and that sort of thing. And I was always aware, although there was some training in the accountancy firm that I was in, I always got the impression that the people were training you about accountancy, but they weren't always training you about how to be effective in life and what are the things that actually work for people to make them more successful generally, not just by being a good accountant or something. So I'd always had that sort of interest. And then progressively, I had experiences in work and outside of work where sometimes I was achieving things and sometimes I wasn't. And finally, I made the decision that you spend so much time working, and accountancy was okay, but it wasn't really what I was passionate about. So I made a decision while I was still working as an accountant to do for my career the thing I was most passionate about. Now, I kind of had a sense about what that was. I'd not heard of NLP at that time, but I kind of got the sense that self-improvement and helping other people was what I was passionate about. So having made that decision, I then carried on working as an accountant. I did training courses. I read more books. I researched things on the internet. And finally, I came across NLP. One of the things I was researching was coaching. And every time I searched on coaching, NLP kept coming up. So I decided, well, I'll just do an NLP training then. And when I did the training, I then realized that, hang on a minute, I could do this. And if I did this, I would then be able to earn money doing this, which would be bringing together my passion and my work, so I could align the two together. So having done the training myself, I then did more training and eventually became a trainer and was able to set up my own business doing what I do now.
And how long did it take you from the moment you realized you stumbled across NLP to becoming a master trainer and being able to share the knowledge with thousands of other students that you've had over the years?
Well, there's a couple of different phases in this. So I think making the decision that I wanted to do something else to actually coming across the NLP was about 5 years that it took. Now, in that time, I didn't lose sight of the fact that I still wanted, even though I couldn't imagine what that might be or how I was going to do it, I didn't lose sight of the fact that I wanted to do that. And during those 5 years, I worked as an accountant. I still, as I said, I read books, I went on training courses, but I never lost sight of the fact that I believed I could do that and something would come up, if you see what I mean.
And once you had decided, because you say you decided that you wanted to do something different before you'd even heard of NLP, so you had a goal in your mind. You didn't quite know what it looked like, but you knew you were heading in a different direction.
Yeah.
How did you go about ensuring that you moved in that direction? You know, people can set all sorts of lofty goals and then get distracted by life and things don't change. How did you do that to start with? And then, because you and I both know that, NLP can be extremely powerful to help people, first of all, set the right goals. Then secondly, how they can set goals which are, ecological and they've got the right capability to do. NLP can be great at enabling people to form new habits and let go of negative emotions and beliefs that they've created about themselves in the past. So all of those sorts of things. So I'm curious, how did the fact that you discovered NLP, you started to read about it, you started to study it, did that change and accelerate your ability to make goals and go after them? Or was it just actually you already kind of were pretty good at that anyway, and it just cemented what you were going after?
I think it's probably a bit of both. So certainly my experience of it was I've been reasonably good at having an objective and working towards it. I was reasonably good at doing that anyway. And what I would tend to do, and I still do this now, in the past when I was setting an objective, it would be, I'm going to do this. So it's not, I would like to do this, or it would be nice if I did this. It's, I'm going to do this. And then I would find what are the steps that I need to do it. And I would check, self-check, how's my progress doing? Am I making enough effort? Am I actually following the right processes? So I kind of had some of even though I didn't, goes back to some of what you were saying before, a lot of people can be doing what NLP would teach you without knowing they were doing it. So some of the aspects that I would teach people today, I was already doing myself anyway. But some other things I had, which were personal blockages myself, what the NLP helped me to do was to let go of those personal blockages. So some of that was around confidence. So some of the time I felt confident and some of the time I didn't feel quite so confident. So having done the NLP course, I was then more aligned. So yes, I wanted to do something in the future, and now having removed some of the blockages, it puts all of your energy in that direction. So as before, maybe some of my energy was more scattered, having removed certain blockages that I had, some negative emotions, so this sense of confidence and a couple of limiting beliefs, having removed those, all of my energy is then aligned with the direction that I actually believe that, that things that I'm passionate about and the direction I want to go in. So it's a combination of the two together, really, that I had some of it anyway, because I was already getting some results in life. And the NLP just sort of, it's like it's like when you focus something, it's like if you've ever using a microscope or something like that, and you can see there's something there, it's kind of there, but then if you just sort of, what the NLP did, it was like just refocused it just a little bit and everything comes into sharper focus.
Very, very interesting. One of the things that I think we're all grappling with at the moment is this COVID situation. We're recording this in January. It's been going on for 10 months now, and I know it's been hugely disruptive for the world. It's been, terrible tragedy with the number of people that have died, the number of people that are suffering because of job losses and, challenges to the economy. It's ghastly, and we hope that it'll end soon. But during this time, it must have been incredibly disruptive to you, to your business. But you must also, I'm assuming this, and you tell me if this isn't right, it must also have been a time where you have seen in your coaching work that there are people who are struggling with how to cope with this level of pressure and uncertainty. Has that been the case? And if so, does NLP, does hypnosis or timeline therapy, do they help people deal with these sorts of emotions and challenges that we've got a lot of at the moment?
So obviously this situation that we're in brings different challenges. Some people obviously have seen this as opportunity. So some people are able to push forward in a way they maybe weren't able to before. And now that's not the case for everybody, though. I think the majority of people, there was maybe a little bit of novelty to begin with, a little bit of adjustment. But as this has continued on, there's, talking to various people as I have done, there's a sense certainly now of a bit of fatigue around it. Now, one of the things which I do think is useful for people, and I've recorded, I'm recording some more, and I have recorded some from the outset, is some guided meditations. So, because as I said before, the hypnosis is very much similar to guided meditation. It's a similar sort of thing, and meditation has been shown to help people with emotional resilience. Now, one of the reasons for that is it's teaching you to live in the present. What we tend to find is, and you get this from, it's not just NLP that would say this. You can pick this up from some of the other traditions, philosophical traditions, is if you live in the present moment, then you don't feel emotion in the same way. Often what we describe as being anxiety or worry is we allow our mind to move forward into the future and imagine the future being difficult for us. And then our body's response to that is we create this sense of anxiety, this feeling that we call anxiety. And that's really a signal that, oh, hang on a minute, we're imagining the future not working out the way that we want. Now, if your mind drifts back into the past, that's when you often feel negative emotions like anger or sadness. You feel, you remember things that you've done in the past. Maybe you feel guilty about it or something. So in the present moment, more often, now it depends what your present moment's like, obviously, but in the present moment, you're more able to find the balance point again in your emotions, so that you're not too much in the past, you're not too much in the future, and that can make you feel more emotionally resilient. So one of the things I recorded a series of meditations at the start of this for the Northwest Ambulance Service. There's also an organization that I'm the lead trainer for, which works with military veterans and serving personnel. And we were running a 3-day live training. We moved that online, but I also then added some meditations for the people doing that as well, just to help them. one of the things I think you need to look at, and this is, applies to me as much as it does to everybody else. You've got to work within the art of the possible. Sometimes your circumstances do change, and it's important to accept that change has happened. It's important to validate. This is when people use the word validate. So you validate it, that it is there, and then you've got to think, well, what can I do within this? So what can I change? I can't change the fact that there is a global pandemic and the fact that the government's brought restrictions, sensibly, I would say, brought restrictions in. I can't change that. But given that, well, what can I do? If I just said, there's a pandemic and it's a complete disaster and now I can't do everything, I could go into a negative spiral. But if I then just stand back a little bit and think, well, what can I do? To be honest, one of the things I did to begin with, I just used it as a bit of time just to have a bit of time to myself and to do a bit of reading and that sort of thing. I thought, well, I can do that, so I'll do that then. Is that obviously as it drags on a little bit, people are, getting a little bit, so there's a bit of fatigue around it, getting a bit weary of it now. But I think we still got to focus on the idea that it's not going to go on like this forever. I would imagine it will be lifting sometime in the spring. And again, do what you can, work in the art of the possible. What it's meant for me is I've stopped doing live training. I don't think the training that I do is completely as effective online. There is some pre-study which is online anyway. I would rather just wait and do the training when I can do it face to face. So obviously I've not done any training so far January. Don't plan on doing any in February. Don't know if I'll be able to do any in March. So that's going to bring some challenges for myself and the business. But again, it's I've just got to stay with the idea that everything will be okay. This is one of the things which I believe is that things will work out. Now, it's not things will work out and I'm not going to do anything. It's, I'm going to do these things anyway because I think I can do these things and these things are useful and taking me towards where I want to go. And it's then believing that everything is still going to work out anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant because actually that ties in nicely with the theme of focus and action. So focus on the now. I remember you saying that, and I hadn't really considered this before, but it's just so obviously true when I think about it now, that there's no such thing as the past, because the past is just its memories that are coded in your brain and other people's brains, and the versions of the past may actually all differ from each other because everybody filters through their own perception of what reality is and what works for them. And then the future hasn't happened yet. So actually the only thing that you can be sure of is what is in the now, right now. So if you can focus on what's happening now, keep your mind in a place which is positive and understanding that it's not going to continue like this indefinitely, and that actually it still does make sense to be able to put in place plans and goals for the things that you want to be, you want to do, you want to have in the future. And then the point you made there is, don't just sit on your hands kind of going and putting yourself on the effect side of the equation. Actually go onto the cause side of the equation and go, right, so this is what I'm going to do about it. This is how I'm going to positively improve my knowledge or improve my relationships or my health or fitness or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, totally.
Time to do that. So it is still about focus and action in order to get some sort of result. You're not quite sure what that result is yet. A little bit like you didn't quite know what you wanted to do, or NLP hadn't sprung up when you decided you wanted to make a career change and a life change.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like you've just highlighted. It's an inescapable truth about our existence is that all of our existence happens in the present moment. Now, we don't often go around thinking about, there is no past and there is no future, everything happens now, because time is something which is embedded within our lives. We've got clocks, we make plans, we make arrangements with people. You can think about things which you did yesterday. I can remember having my breakfast this morning, and when I had the breakfast, it was a very real experience. And when I think about it now, but like I said, when I think about it now, I can still remember it, but it's just in my mind. Now, we don't often think about that, but this is one of the places where the exploration and the reading that I did about personal development and about what is reality, because if you're interested in getting better results in life, which was one of the things that was driving my passion to explore personal development, where that leads you is you end up with having a model of the world. What is the world like? Now, if I get closer to understanding how the world actually functions, then surely that can help me get a better results. So that drew my interest into, what does reality seem to be? And that's then what I wrote, the book that I wrote was about that. And it is really this understanding that time is an illusion. And there's a few things which are constant in our life, and one of those is change. So things do change, and it's perfectly sensible, recommended to have goals, and you've got to, at the same time, allow yourself to move towards that in the way you move towards it. You've got to, as I've said before, you work within the art of the possible within that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And by the way, just in case listeners want to know, the book is called It's Time by Ewan Mochrie. It's available on Amazon. It is a really good and thought-provoking read, so I would really recommend it. So just coming to the point now where, we're in a situation, people, as we've talked about, have got a little bit of weariness and fatigue around the situation that we're in right now. People started 2021 going, right, good riddance to 2020. This is going to be a much better year. And it turns out that actually it hasn't started particularly brilliantly, although there is, the glimmer of light with vaccines and obviously the, not that we're a political show, but the presidential election and results in the US is clearly a good thing for the world. So what, would you have one or two or three kind of practical little things that listeners could do to help them actually make 2021 a good year for them?
Now, even though you're using the idea of this year and last year and that sort of thing, one of the things which will always help you is you don't need to wait to change something. So a lot of people often do New Year's resolutions and that sort of thing at the start of the year. Well, you can. These again are, we've put these sort of artificial sort of boundaries on, this was this time, this is a new year or whatever. You can decide any time in your life that you're actually going to make some changes and set some goals for yourself. So it doesn't matter where you are in your life right now. You can always start a process of making some change. Now, when it goes back to the, what other things could people do, then given that you can make decisions to improve your life or make changes at any time, one of the things that I would start with is I always start with a longer term sense of where I'm going when I set goals for myself. So even if you're thinking about, what do I want to do in 2021, I would start with where do I actually want to be in 10 years or 15 years or 5 years or something like that. So I did a process of setting some goals for myself in, I think it was about October last year. So, so I didn't wait for the new year or anything like that. I thought, and we're still in the pandemic. I thought, well, I'm going to set some goals. But where I started with, where do I want to be in 10 years' time from where I am now? Now, that's that gives you an overall sense of where am I going? Where's my general sense of direction that I want to go in? Now, you don't need to be too specific about it. It's okay to be a little bit more abstract in the longer term. Now, what you then do is you then come back closer to the now and you think, so what do I need to do now to start taking steps towards where I actually want to be in the future? So that's when you start putting one or two goals or milestones in place with already in your mind a sense of where you want to go. Now, the other thing about it then, again, I've mentioned this a couple of times already, is you then need to be okay with how things work out as you go on that journey. One of the most important things to remember about goals is, paradoxically enough, it's not the achievement of the goal that's important. It's the taking action towards the achievement of it. So the very fact that you are doing things in the direction you want to go in, that's what's important. Whether you get there or not and what it looks like, you'll discover that when you get there.
Yeah, but fascinating and really, really true. I kind of look back and go, well, yes, of course, I planned out my career. No, I didn't. I just ended up doing a series of jobs and things that were kind of interesting or opportunities that presented themselves. And I can string it together now and say, that was a deliberate career choice. And in a sense, it kind of was, because I was directing it towards certain things, but actually in a huge sense, it just wasn't. It's a series of events which, has brought me to where I am right now. So you can make these really lofty goals and not get there, but you know what? You may get 3/4 of the way there, which is about, 17 times further than you would have got if you'd never set the goal in the first place.
Yes, or you end up in somewhere slightly different, but when you get there, it's like, actually, I did actually want to get here. And had I not actually set the goal to go somewhere else, I would never have got here.
Exactly.
Sort of thing.
Well, that's brilliant. Look, thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast episode. If people want to get in touch with you, find out more about you, where can they go on the internet?
Well, if you just search on Inspire 360, then you'll be able to find the website there. I also have another website which has more details about the book on it, and that's just ewanmochrie.com, I think it is. So if you search on either of those two things, then you'll be able to find me.
Fantastic. I cannot recommend highly enough the training that I went on last year. I'm also doing another one, assuming we get to be able to be face-to-face in May this year. Cannot wait for that. As I said before, probably the best training session that I think I've been on in my life, and this being my 50th year, that's quite a few training sessions. So thank you for that. And again, thanks so much for joining on this episode and sharing a little bit about your journey, your story, your philosophy on life, how you got into NLP, what is it, and some of the fantastic advice for staying in the moment, but planning for the long term and working backwards. And I think that point that you made, that it's not the end destination, the end goal achievement that is necessarily the most important part, but it's the actions and the steps you take towards getting there. I think that is a really great piece of advice. So again, Ewan, thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I hope that was helpful for you today and you enjoyed listening to the Focus Action Results podcast. If it was either helpful or enjoyable, or heaven forbid both, please subscribe, leave feedback, share with friends and family, and tweet it loud with the hashtag Focus Action Results podcast.